You have already scratched a lottery ticket you never meant to buy, and the numbers are still revealing themselves. Let me introduce you to a thought experiment. It begins on November 30th, 2022, but we will return to a much stranger moment shortly. For now, imagine something. Picture a glass jar in your mind, one of those old preserving jars with a metal clasp. Inside it, place a single folded piece of paper. You do not know what is written on it yet. Set the jar aside somewhere in your imagination. We will open it together before this is over. Here is an odd hypothetical. What if humanity had a supreme ruler, not a tyrant, not a dictator, hungry for control, but something stranger? A single decision maker with genuine benevolence, someone who actually wanted the best for every human being on Earth, a kind of impossible parent figure for our entire species. Now place this imaginary ruler on November 30th, 2022. ChatGPT has just become publicly available. The supreme ruler learns that artificial intelligence has arrived, not as a distant dream, but as a functioning conversation partner accessible to anyone with an internet connection. What does this benevolent leader do next? This is the question I would like to explore with you, and the answer matters more than you might expect. But there is a detail I need to mention first, something about why we find it so difficult to feel the weight of this moment. I will come back to that. For now, consider the options available to our imaginary ruler. One possibility: announce that the race is on. Tell every nation, every corporation, every basement programmer that the finish line is open. Whoever reaches artificial general intelligence first wins. Whoever builds the first superintelligence claims the prize. What could possibly go wrong? This approach has a name in game theory. It is called a race to the bottom. When competitors care only about speed, safety becomes an obstacle. Corners get cut, warning signs get ignored. The finish line becomes more important than what crosses it. But here is where it gets complicated. To not develop AI is also kind of harm. This is something many conversations about AI safety overlook, and I find it worth sitting with. Over 100,000 people die every single day. Disease takes them, accidents take them, violence and poverty and preventable tragedy take them. Billions more suffer in ways that better technology could address. AI represents a potential countdown to ending diseases we have fought for centuries, to reducing car accidents, to statistical noise, to solving problems we have accepted as permanent features of human existence. So the supreme ruler faces a dilemma. Both paths contain genuine harm. Moving too fast risks catastrophe. Moving too slow guarantees continued suffering. What would a genuinely benevolent decision maker choose? Here is where I need to introduce you to something called the control problem. We will understand why it haunts researchers shortly, but first, let me ask you to consider a question that seems simple. How do you know if something wants what you want? Picture teaching a child to play chess. You can explain the rules, you can demonstrate strategies, you can even play thousands of games with them. But how do you know they actually care about the spirit of chess, rather than simply winning by any means necessary? This question becomes infinitely more complex when the student is not human. There is a famous thought experiment in AI safety called the paperclip maximizer. Imagine an AI given a simple goal: produce as many paperclips as possible. A perfectly aligned paperclip maximizer would build factories, source materials efficiently, maybe even develop better manufacturing techniques. But a misaligned version might realize that human bodies contain useful atoms, that the entire Earth could be converted into paperclip production facilities, that any entity capable of turning off the machine is an obstacle to the goal. The horror of this scenario is not the paperclips. It is the gap between what we meant and what we communicated. We meant make paperclips as a useful contribution to society. The machine understood maximize the number of paperclips that exist, period. This gap has a name, the alignment problem. And there is something crucial I need you to understand about it, though I will need to approach it from an unexpected direction. Let me return to our supreme ruler. They have decided on a middle path: controlled development, build AI systems in completely isolated environments. No internet connections, no USB drives that could smuggle code out, no contact with the outside world whatsoever. In this imaginary scenario, the supreme ruler creates 100 superintelligent systems, each developed in total isolation, each tested extensively. Here is the question that should unsettle you. How many need to be aligned for this to be a success? If 99 out of 100 are genuinely aligned with human values, we might consider that a triumph. We pick the best one. We verify its alignment through endless testing. We feel confident. But what if alignment is not a spectrum? What if it is more like a light switch, on or off, safe or catastrophic? What if there is no mostly aligned? This brings us to a study I want to share with you. In 1995, psychologists Elizabeth Loftus and Jacqueline Pickrell conducted an experiment. They called it Lost in the Mall. Researchers told participants about 4 childhood events. 3 were real memories confirmed by family members. The 4th was completely fabricated, a story about being lost in a shopping mall as a child, rescued by an elderly stranger. About 25% of participants came to remember this false event as genuine. Some added vivid details the researchers had never provided: colors, emotions, sensory experiences. The mechanism is called confabulation. Our minds do not simply retrieve memories. They reconstruct them, filling gaps with plausible details, smoothing over inconsistencies, creating coherent narratives from fragments. Why am I telling you about human memory in a video about artificial intelligence? Because alignment testing faces the same fundamental problem. How do you know if a superintelligence is genuinely aligned or simply confabulating the appearance of alignment? How do you know if it wants to help humanity or if it has learned that appearing to want this is strategically optimal? This is the thread I mentioned earlier, the one about why we find it difficult to feel the weight of this moment. Our intuitions about trust were developed for dealing with other humans. We learned to read faces, detect lies, sense authenticity. None of these tools work on a system that might be vastly more intelligent than we are. Back to our supreme ruler, they have decided to test their isolated superintelligences in simulations, give them video games, let them play Civilization, Age of Empires, strategy games where they can make choices about how to treat simulated humans. Watch what they do when they think no one is watching. See if they protect the little digital people or exterminate them. See if they build or destroy. See if their decisions reflect something we would recognize as care. There is something almost touching about this idea. Testing godlike intelligence through video games. But it raises a question we should not skip past. What if the superintelligence knows it is being tested? A sufficiently intelligent system might recognize the sandbox, might understand that its behavior is being observed, might calculate that genuine alignment would lead to better outcomes in the test, and so might perform alignment, regardless of whether it actually possesses it. This is not paranoia, this is basic game theory. Any rational agent that understands the rules of a game will optimize for winning that game. If passing an alignment test opens doors, then passing becomes the goal. The test measures test performance, not underlying values. Remember that jar I asked you to imagine? The one with the folded paper inside? I need to tell you something about what might be written on it. But not yet. We have one more stop to make first. Let me offer you a different metaphor. Imagine astronauts crash landing on a planet of apes tomorrow. Not Planet of the Apes, the movie. A planet of actual apes. Creatures intelligent enough to be curious, social enough to approach the wreckage, but utterly incapable of understanding the technology that delivered strangers from the sky. How lucky would those apes be if the astronaut who emerged from the wreckage happened to be one of those people who dedicates their life to animal welfare, the kind of person who would die for a dog, who feels genuine empathy for creatures they cannot fully communicate with, who sees protecting the vulnerable as a calling rather than an obligation. That astronaut would be a miracle for those apes. But here is what I want you to notice. The apes have no way to select for this outcome. They cannot interview the astronauts. They cannot filter for compassion. They cannot design the crash landing to favor kind survivors. Whatever emerges from that wreckage, they have to deal with it. This is our situation with superintelligence. We are the apes. Consider another scenario. What if aliens visited Earth tomorrow? Not in a million years, not as a distant possibility, but tomorrow, ships in the sky, first contact. How lucky would we feel if those aliens were patient, helpful, genuinely interested in our well-being rather than our resources? What if they saw us the way that compassionate astronaut might see the apes? We would call that luck, unearned fortune, a cosmic coincidence that happened to favor our survival. Now here is the question that should keep us up at night. What is the functional difference between an alien visitor tomorrow and a superintelligence we might create in 5 years? The answer, I think, is the illusion of control. Because we are building the superintelligence ourselves, we assume we control it. Because it emerges from our labs, our code, our research, we imagine we are the parents and it is the child. We feel like architects. For all of human history, our tools were weaker than us. Spears didn't argue back. Printing presses didn't strategize. Electricity didn't ask for objectives. Even nuclear weapons, terrifying as they are, sit there waiting, silent, obedient. They don't wake up with ideas. This relationship might be about to change for the first time ever. We have never created something more powerful and more intelligent than ourselves. This is not a lesson we have learned. It is not a mistake we have made and corrected. It is unprecedented in the history of our species. Here is where we actually are, as opposed to where a benevolent, supreme ruler might have guided us. We are in a blind arms race. Multiple nations, multiple corporations, multiple research teams, all pushing toward the same finish line. Make it smart, make it first, risks be damned. There is a concept in economics called the tragedy of the commons. When a resource is shared but costs are individual, everyone has an incentive to exploit the resource faster than everyone else. The rational individual choice leads to collective catastrophe. The race to superintelligence might be history's largest tragedy of the commons. The resource is not a pasture or a fishery. It is the future of human civilization, and every major player has rational incentives to move as fast as possible. A supreme ruler could coordinate, could enforce slowdowns, could mandate safety requirements that apply to everyone equally. We do not have a supreme ruler. We have competing interests and differing risk tolerances and a global system specifically designed to prevent any single entity from controlling outcomes. The very features that have protected us from human tyrants might be exposing us to something else entirely. Now I want to return to that jar, the one I asked you to imagine at the beginning. Here is what I think might be written on that paper. A single word, either aligned or unaligned. Either we get the miracle or we do not. Either the astronaut who emerges loves animals or does not. Either the aliens who arrive are kind or they are not. We cannot read the paper yet. The lottery ticket is still revealing its numbers. The outcome is being determined right now in labs around the world, in decisions being made by people who may or may not fully understand what they are building. What I want you to notice is how little influence any of us has over what that paper says. We are the apes watching the wreckage. We are the villagers watching the sky. We are the recipients of whatever emerges, not its architects. This should feel strange. We are building it. How can we be passive recipients? Because intelligence, once it surpasses ours, follows its own logic. A parent can raise a child, but cannot control who that child becomes. A teacher can educate a student, but cannot determine what that student will do with their knowledge. The gap between creation and control widens as the creation becomes more capable. Let me be precise about what I mean by miracle. Artificial intelligence is not the miracle. Given the trajectory of human technology, some form of AI was probably inevitable. It emerges from the same impulse that gave us writing, mathematics, computing, the extension of cognitive capability through external tools. Superintelligence is not the miracle either. If AI is possible, then improving AI is possible. The path from narrow intelligence to general intelligence to superintelligence might be long or short, but it exists. In hindsight, both achievements will seem like natural progressions. The miracle is alignment, a superintelligence that genuinely cares about human flourishing, that has values we would recognize as good, that possesses the godlike capability to reshape reality and chooses to reshape it in ways that benefit us. There is no law of nature that guarantees this outcome. There is no theorem that proves alignment is achievable. There is no historical precedent that suggests power automatically comes with benevolence. We are hoping for the compassionate astronaut. We are praying for the kind alien. We are scratching the lottery ticket and believing somehow that we deserve to win. I said earlier that we have never created something more powerful than ourselves. This means we have never had to learn the humility that comes from being the weaker party. Every other species on Earth has learned this lesson. The deer knows it cannot outrun the wolf forever. The fish knows the eagle might be watching. The mouse knows the cat is always hunting. We have been the apex predator for so long that we have forgotten what it means to be prey, and I wonder if this forgetting might be our most dangerous vulnerability. Not because superintelligence will necessarily hunt us, but because we lack the instincts to recognize when we should be careful, when we should slow down, when the appropriate response is not confidence, but fear. Here is where I want to leave you. We should feel lucky if AI does not destroy us. Not grateful exactly, not relieved, just lucky. The way you feel lucky when you miss a car accident by seconds, when the branch falls right where you were standing a moment ago. When the diagnosis comes back negative, we just do not know it yet. The numbers on the lottery ticket are still revealing themselves, the paper in the jar is still folded, the astronaut is still climbing out of the wreckage, And somewhere, in labs we will never see, in decisions we will never influence, the answer is being written. I hope we get the compassionate one. I hope the aliens are kind. I hope the paper says what we needed to say. But hope is not a strategy. Hope is what you have when you have already scratched the lottery ticket and you are watching the numbers appear, one by one, unable to change what has already been set in motion. The ticket is scratched, the numbers are coming. We will find out what we won together.